Alright, well, welcome to Homebrew. I'm your humble game master, Joshua Sloan. Joining us today, we have players for our next campaign titled Call of the Hunger. Please introduce yourselves, starting with Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. You'll see me play in the duet campaign as well as Emery.
You also see her in the back of my screen, too. On the cams, we also have Austin over here.
Hey, Austin, also known as Human Boy Yes, though some of you might know that.
And then lastly, we've got Dustin over the mic in the Discord chat.
Howdy, I'm Dustin. I actually haven't decided on a character name yet.
So, today what we've stepped yourself into is our session 0. What we're going to be doing is planning out what we're actually going to be doing for our campaign. Now, we did cheat a little bit, and it's not all in this session 0. We did do some pre-planning because we had one of the characters from this campaign involved in an origin story for this. And so there's a couple of things that we went through, but I will paraphrase those as part of this session 0. For those of you who don't know what a session 0 is in a role-playing game, there's a lot of basically homework before the game starts that you have to do to make sure that everyone is ready for scene and action for the first session. So what we're doing is making sure that all of that stuff knits together. If you have players who just show up to the table to play D&D or Genesis or any of those thousands of different role-playing games out there, and they just expect to roll dice because they know the rules as written of the game, sometimes what you fail to notice is that there's some other really important information, like maybe one person wants it to be a comedy and one other person wants it to be a drama, right? Suddenly we're playing two very different games. And so this is just a chance to us to get all on the same page. And so you guys are just letting you know, you're going to be looking in on this. We're going to be building some characters. First thing that we're going to start off with is defining what we are actually going to be doing, right? What kind of story are we going to tell? Then we're going to move into what is expected of the players and, you know, what can be expected of you. So that way we're all on the same page. We don't have people, for instance, texting the whole time, right? Or someone says, oh, I have to go pick up my kids or something like that, right? And then suddenly they're leaving the game and we're like, wait, hold on. I thought we were going to do this all day. You know, those sorts of things, right? You got to get those kind of logistics and those kind of common rules at the table ironed out. Then we're going to go into some setting preferences. Which those are some of the things that we've already talked about, so that way we can get ready for this, or get ready for this campaign in its relationship to the origin story. Then we're going to go into building our characters, and I think that's what's going to be the lion's share of today, is getting in and starting to make these characters and personalize them to each of these players here. And then we're going to, after that, we're going to get done, and essentially the only thing that we have left to do before our first session in June, or potentially end of June, early July, depending on how things flush out, is that I'm going to get with each of the players and we're going to collaborate and make backgrounds, so that way the other players don't know the backgrounds to the other party members, and that's something that can come up organically throughout the campaign. So, without further ado, what are we doing? So, in essence, I know everyone in the group here who's playing in this campaign is familiar with what we are doing. We are making a story, right? And a story is a collaboration, meaning that I'm making some of it and you guys are making some of it, and we're working together in order to push this forward, right? What's my responsibility is that I'm going to be making a path or a story that is set in a sandbox world. Now, the path or the story is what some folks would refer to as railroading, right? Railroading can be seen as a connotation when the DM starts stepping on the toes of the players. And we'll talk about the role of the players here in what they do for making the story as well. So for everyone here watching, or my players here, Dustin, Sarah, and Austin, what I'm going to be providing for you guys as a DM is I'm going to provide you with an objective, a motive, and a direction, right? Otherwise, what we're talking about is 3 dudes sitting in a sandbox world doing whatever they want, and that's not much of a story or a campaign necessarily. And because we're focusing on playing a campaign, that's what I'm going to give you guys. So I'm going to make an objective, which is what are you guys going to do? I'm going to try to tie it into the characters that you're building today with a why are you going to do it? And I'm going to try to give you guys some sort of place to start by the session 1. So what's your guys' responsibility? Basically to bite down on that, right? So I know it's the dreaded phrase for GMs around the world and DMs is that's not what my that's not what my character would do, right? If you make a character that doesn't want to do the campaign, then we missed something here in session 0, or we can just say, hey, okay, that character goes off and does his own adventure, and now you make a new character who does want to do this adventure, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just a lot of building and navigation that it's dysfunctional at that point. Now, where does player agency come into play? Now, in my opinion, player agency is filling in the details of the campaign. If I give you guys this bauble needs to go to Mount Doom, and I give you this is, generally speaking, the road to Mount Doom, you guys can say, well, that's the road to Mount Doom, and maybe my character doesn't want to save the world, but he talks to some of these priests over there, and they really want the world saved, and he's interested in money, so he jones them for money to go do it, right? So now you started to deviate from the path to make and flush out this story with your personal agency in the story itself. Maybe you just decided not to take the road that leads directly to Mount Doom. Maybe you wanted to go up and around, or maybe you wanted to fly there, or whatever the hell it is, right? So that's kind of where I see player agency is going into there. And then we can talk about side quests and all that stuff, and that's all within your purview, as long as you understand that there's a general handshake agreement between you and me that, hey, if you guys want a story, I'm going to try to give you some sort of story, and I'm going to try to work real hard on building some characters and some interesting things in there. But if you take a left turn right out the gates, I'm screwed, and we kind of all are when it comes to making this story together. So that's all I got on that point. Moving on forward to the next big bullet, what can you expect from the other players, and what do we expect from you? You don't need to know how this system works. Dustin has very little experience with Genesis, and most of the experience Dustin has with Genesis is teaching you how to do it wrong. Isn't that right, Austin?
Yeah. But the slight context on that, keeping it very brief, is this group also, plus 2 of my friends from high school, are part of a campaign IDM, where I took the thing I liked about Josh's campaigns and the thing I liked about some of my D&D experience from high school, and I made my own homebrew and slapped them together. And it's fine. It's definitely not very polished, but that's not my style. Josh is a little more polished, and I'm much more like throw some shit together and go have a good time. And if you really look at it, you'd find a lot of flaws, but yeah, that's why I'm not one with a channel about it.
Well, here's the thing about that, too, is that's why we call this homebrew, right? Is we play what's fun for us, and there's a reason why we're engaged, and we play that campaign. We're playing it last night, as a matter of fact. It's fun. And my version of Genesis is not the rules as written that you'll find in the books either. So that's a big point of this, is that, like I was saying, you don't necessarily need to know how the system works. I've developed cheat sheets and whatnot, and we'll walk through this together. But moving on to the next point I wanted to make, you do need to know what you want your character to do, and think more into the terms of role playing. If we had no rules, no dice, no anything like that, you'd still know in essence, hey, my character wants to try to save that kid from the burning building. My character wants to jump that cliff. My character wants to smite that troll. You're going to want to know what your character wants to do and be able to provide that on a regular basis and drive the narrative of this world. Get immersed, and that's kind of what we're looking for from each other. You do need to familiarize yourself with your character sheets at some point, because it can really grind down a game if no one has any idea what health is or something like that. I will not be looking at other players' sheets unless it's one of those few and far between situations where I'm trying to help you understand the particular phrasing that we had for an ability or something like that. So just getting familiar with that is just a common decency item. You need to be attentive during other players' turns. That's just kind of a fact. I know folks, especially when you get into bigger parties, that's why I like to keep parties 4 or less, typically speaking, is because it turns into 7, 8 turns. It's very understandable how people can start to get distracted. But we're making a story together, and part of that is listening to the story that that us other players contribute, right? Moving off of that, ask questions. So that's a big one I need from you guys. Can I do this? How hard would this be? Would I know that, right? Because you're trying to dip yourselves into the shoes of someone who's not you, right? I got a whole world named Dwelling that you guys are going to be investigating. I don't expect you to know all of the gods of that world. Hell, we barely even understand the different pantheons based off of the regions of our own world, right? But there's some things that your character might know, and so it's up to you to ask, hey, would my character know this? And I can fill you in on the details, right? I can't jump nearly as high as your characters can probably jump. So if you ask, hey, can I jump that log? I can say, hey, yeah, you probably can, but it's going to be a 30% chance that you fail, right? So ask questions and get involved in that way. Metagaming. So table talk is fine. But metagaming beyond what your character would know is where we get into some issues, right? So you can say, hey, like, Austin, don't forget that your character has, he ignores hindering terrain. That is completely fine. You guys can metagame the hell out of that sort of stuff. But when you start to do something like, one of the characters goes down a dark alley and starts getting attacked by monsters, and your other two characters are shopping, it would make not a lot of sense for your characters to go, you know what? I'm done shopping. I think I'm just going to go to the other side of town into that dark alley over there. Like, why? Right? So that's kind of what we're looking for as far as metagaming goes. That's kind of where I see the line being. And it's one of those things where it's soft and we'll be polite about it, but that's where I see where potential abuse could come from. And yeah. Interpretations. Character to character is fine, but no, not person to person if it is third person. I am so sorry. Ashara is just at it for her itching right now, but poor girl. You guys will get a chance to meet her and Corbin as well here soon enough. All right. Interruptions. Character to character is fine, but not person to person if it is third person. And what I mean by that is that you can have your character interject over another character, right? But if you keep interrupting other players, that's just rude, right? So that's all I really mean by that. Is there's a difference between your characters interrupting each other and the players interrupting each other, especially if you're in third person. Okay. Roleplay a moderate character. What do I mean by that? So role-playing a moderate character is something that I think that can be undervalued, but is actually kind of important because it addresses zealotry. And what I mean by that is the biggest problem with those notions of this is what my character would do is when they are not someone who is capable of making accommodations, right? My character believes in doing good, okay? So he's not going to give the evil guy water while he's in a torture chamber. And he's like, no, bad guys are bad. I'm not going to help him out at all, right? Or something like that, where it's like, yeah, you have to make sure that context is still relevant, right? Otherwise, things can go to a grinding halt. And that can be a problem when you need to find reasons for your character to engage with the story, or when you need to find reasons for your character to help the other players, okay? Those are the two biggest things that I need you guys to lean into, is helping the other players or helping engaging with the story. And sometimes zealotry can get away from that. So typically, the way that you have that you get around this is that you have any of these three motivations for your character. You have them be curious, opportunistic, or empathetic, right? Those ones are very easy because when you drop things in, like someone mentions their backstory, if you're curious, or if you're trying to find a way to exploit it, or if you're trying to help them, you're always going to be picking up stones and engaging with what's going on. So that's all I got for that. Does anyone have any questions about it? It's kind of common sense stuff, but I feel like some of it's just not spoken about sometimes, and it can be one of the problems. The next item, if no one's got anything, is logistics and setting preferences. This is what we did earlier. There's Sarah.
Yeah, I was like not sure why why my things just zoomed in.
Yeah, I'll just blame it on Ashara. She's the bane of all of our existence and the source of all the love in the world. Logistical and setting preferences. We talked about our schedules, what we could reasonably contribute to this time hanging out together. We talked about our campaign mood, our campaign settings, and decided that, hey, we want to be in the woods because that would be interesting to us. Some of us didn't want to be in a city the whole time. Some of us didn't want to be in the dwellings version of Antarctica, right? So there's things like that we said, hey, this is kind of what would be fun for all of us. And then we kind of planned all of that out. So I'm not going to give you guys that today, but that was what we did for that. And now we finally get to the bread and butter of our session 0 here, which is picking characters together, specifically so that we don't have deal-breaking characteristics, right? If someone picks to be a demon hunter and the other person picks to be a demon, we made a mistake. So that's all we're really looking to do here is...
I hope none of you are like woodcutters or anything like that. Hunters, no? Okay.
So, yeah, that's a good point. Why don't we start with Sarah? So, Sarah's already kind of got a hard and loose character that we started to develop. Now, there is plenty of... I say hard and loose because you have a character who's pretty concrete right now, but we can do some time-lapse shenanigans in your origin story, and they can come out a little bit different at the end, you know? So, we got options here.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, what about...
I used to tinker with woodland things. Now I'm a pyromancer.
Whoa.
What the hell happened to you?
Never again. Twice scorned from the woodwork.
Yeah. Screw that.
So what do you have so far as your idea for your character? Specifically talking about motivations, which Dustin will talk about here in just a second. All characters are going to have a strength, a flaw, a fear, and a desire. And just kind of like some of the core things that your character has as far as emotions and core ideals and stuff like that.
Okay, so... her name is Emery. She's going to be pretty much your classic Minnesota nice gal, you know. So she's going to be pretty polite. She's kind of thrifty or like a hoarder sometimes because she likes to tinker and create things. But she's a Whirlwind, which is like a wood elf. So she's kind of like half tinker, half druid-esque thing at the moment. But she's very curious. And she's interested in trying to understand pretty much everything, but specifically like spirits and like the potentia, which I don't know, Josh, you could probably do a better job describing that, but it's kind of like the energy behind the world,
so
like where magic comes from and stuff.
Yeah, essentially the world is made up of a physical world and a spiritual world. The physical world is dwelling, and everything that animates the physical world is ascribed to the potentia. So spirits, to a degree, physics, magic, gods, even to a degree. Like basically, there's everything that animates the world is the potentia.
Yeah. But that's my spiel, at least right now.
Yeah, okay, cool. Austin, you already had some preconceived notions about your character, and it sounds like some people might have helped you out with that.
I do / did / still do. Yeah, the stream, I gave them 4 options for class, and I gave them 4 options for race. Now, the class is kind of soft. I left it vague. Like, one of them was Paladin, which got the most votes. So, we're a rat Paladin. Now, I do have a couple things I want to base off of what Dustin's going to do, so we don't end up being too similar. Because not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I believe he wanted to be a warrior type. So, depending on whether he goes with like a 2-handed weapon or a 1-handed weapon, I'll go the other one. So we just have a slight variation in melee skills. Going to be focusing on healing. Do you want my whole backstory right now or just the overview?
So we'll be making your backstory later on, but what we're looking for is if your character was plopped next to one of these other 2 characters, what do we need to know about them in the moment, right? What would set you off? What are you charming? Are you, what are some of your ideas? Because, right, this is just all still in theory, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about being a rat paladin, and I just thought it'd be funny to be for the goddess of beauty. And I kind of wanted to be very, very friendly, super helpful, just kind of want to rid the world of its afflictions, and just a happy-go-lucky rat. Having a good day.
He's having a good time.
Do good. Heal world. Some of my notes here. Okay, so we got a happy
cheese.
We got a happy Minnesotan satyr mixed with wood elf sort of thing.
I've got horns.
You got horns. Yep. Just giving some people a little bit more background into the Whirlwind is a grab bag.
It's like half Kunari, half Wood Elf, whatever.
Yeah,
It'll work.
It's horned ones is I think one of the things to them. Yeah. And then we got another nice person, so that's some synergy there. Who is a Rattan paladin, whereas I think you were mentioning being a tinkerer, pretty much. In sorts, you're gonna make woodland machines essentially, but using spirit magic. Okay, so if Austin is thinking rat paladin healer, so we got a support, and we've got another potential support, which we can talk about. How much you could multi-class into this. That's a very big sliding scale as far as how much you want to go into that.
Yeah, I wasn't planning to do any sort of healing. Mine is more like I'll add another potential thing to the fight.
Yep.
Which would do damage and stuff.
Definitely. Yep. So, Dustin, did you have any ideas so far on what you were thinking here on your character?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna play him kind of like I do Charon in the other campaign, where he's very polite, polite and personable in a sort of distant way. He does not form bonds or relationships with, say, like he's not going to try to make deals or alliances with strangers to advance his goals. It's more like, hey, I need one small thing from you, then I'm out of your hair, or I'm going to move on. He is a fighter. Definitely understands violence a lot better than magic or technology, but would prefer if he doesn't have to use it. I'm thinking I'm going to make him distrustful of magic or magical creatures in general. He sees it as a tool that he has an uneasy alliance with. Maybe part of his backstory is that he had a very bad experience with magic, or he may have lost someone or something to magic. And I guess kind of like Kratos from the newer God of War, where he does not consort much with higher magical creatures or concepts unless he has to, and prefers to solve things on his own and takes care of his own business.
Okay. Couple quick questions on that. If you were to play this type of character, how would you imagine I could get you engaged with the story, and how would you get engaged with other players as a drifter, so to speak?
I would say probably find a common goal. I might turn it into kind of a journey of self-discovery for the character, where he doesn't want to make his new players or his new friends and traveling companions responsible for what happened to him. If we end up having to consort with magical creatures, he'll maybe realize that he was the problem or something to that effect, where we find a common goal, and as we're working towards it, he improves as a character.
Okay. And when it comes to, we will potentially have someone who makes magical critters and someone else who channels a deity in the group. Do you imagine that that's something that you could work with this character?
Yes. Like I said, he does not venerate magic, but he's wary of it and sees it as a tool used when necessary. So, it's kind of like somebody who doesn't really care how their car works; they just want to make sure that it does.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Or the person who doesn't drink alcohol but doesn't, isn't going to yell at anybody else for doing it at the
it's
party.
not going to ruin the party if you want to summon a rabbit.
Perfect. That's exactly the kinds of things that I want to get out of the way. It's just making sure that, because I think that you can have some fun dynamics. We actually got a character in a different campaign right now who hates people using magic, and they've got essentially a glamour boy, twinkle fairy magic man in the group too. So it's one of those things where they actually have a fun dynamic from that. So I don't think it can be sometimes it can be actually better of a story than necessarily a hindrance, as long as we don't have that zealotry component to it, right? Where someone's like, ugh, magic, destroy it,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving to some of the other stuff here. Rat Paladin Healer. I'm just kind of rolling backwards. What do you think you would have as far as So desires, I'm hearing as far as a desire, a genuine interest to like repair the world, right? Is that kind of what you're leaning towards?
Uh, I would say that a little less grandiose. By the way, just real quick, like documentation stuff. Is Dustin taking sheet 4 or sheet 7 down?
Stream campaign sheets. Let me pull that up. Let's
Before I
see
start
here.
typing somewhere, and then he types on my sheet, and then I have to punch him.
It should work live. So just steal
So
one.
you get 4, 5, 6. There you go.
Okay.
Whoever types first.
Right.
Yeah. So desire, yeah, it'd be much more like this is my long-term goal. It would be probably to know how do I define this? I know like in my head. It'd be like to have like rid the known world of disease, I guess. But it's
Okay.
like I know it's pretty unattainable.
Right.
Like he's just wandering around curing every disease he can.
But we would say something along the lines of like you're averse to, like, you cannot idly stand by and see disease infect the world, you know, like, and we can obviously change the wording of that, right?
Yeah.
Fear getting sick. Nice.
Yeah. Well, that relates to my backstory, which I won't go into.
Okay. So one thing that I would look at too, so that those are actually distinct, which is nice. I think the one thing that we mentioned before when it comes to like strengths, flaws, desires, and fears is that like strength, resistance to sickness, flaw, repulsed by sick people, desire to cure sickness and fear, you know, like that sort of thing. So just as long as we can play it up a little bit, but that's definitely a good start. Sarah, what did you think or have in mind for your strengths, flaws, fears, and desires, as having already kind of had an idea of where your character is starting in the prequel?
Yeah, well, I don't know where I'm going to end up in the arc, so can I just say what it is now? Because it might change.
Yep.
Okay, but I had my strength be that I'm like, we said polite / unassuming, meaning like they wouldn't expect me to do anything wrong. You know, like, oh, she's just there. It's fine, no problem. And desire was, like I said, to understand the potentia and spirits and things like that. Flaw is that I'm a hoarder. So I like to keep things and not throw things away, basically, like, because I like to I build my constructs and everything, so don't want you to throw anything away. I can use it. I can put it into my construct. It can fit somewhere, type of a thing.
Right.
And then fear was like loss. So we said like emotional loss.
Right.
Meaning like not like, you know, afraid of people dying, even people just like leaving, things changing, that type of thing. Because
Yep.
I'm used to the life in the forest doing the same thing, and as like an elf, you have like a longer lifespan. Just not used to things changing.
Gotcha. Okay. Going back to the flaw and the desire and the fear for is that a working name? Wretch?
Wretch Braventail. It's official.
Gotcha. All right.
What a
So
wretch.
for Wretch Braventail, cure disease is desire, fear getting sick. So what if I were to plop them in front of a sick person? Would they be afraid of getting close, or would they want to get engaged? Right. I think that's one
No,
of the...
they would want to get engaged. The fear is more like when I feel symptoms, because again, backstory reasons, but Wretch largely thinks he's immune to disease. He thinks he is. He's not, but like he thinks he is.
That would make a good flaw, rather than having it as a fear is what I'm thinking, right? Like a little bit overconfident in certain things, right? Like as far as their own personal health. And what you can have is I would like to see is having your fear be something completely separate, right? That way we have a couple of things to pull off of, and it can be superficial or it can be pretty deep, as long as it's something that like you can reference in situations as a guiding source, right? So you're walking down the road and a merchant is like, "Hey, you want to buy death sticks?" You can like look at this and be like, "You know what? My character's very curious. That's his flaw. So he's gonna grab a death stick." you know? Or overconfident, right? Your character can't get ill. Maybe they'll grab a death stick.
I think the flaw would definitely be, the fear would be setting up roots then, because like he wants to roam around and cure all the disease anywhere. And why that would be a fear is like he's presented with a situation that requires him to sit somewhere for a while. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you snapped your femur. You need to stay in this hospital for like 2 or 3 months. And then he'll be like, "What? No, I have to keep moving. What? No, I can't be here."
Yeah, what I would say is add to your desire right in the front, crusade to cure disease. I think that makes it a little bit more conceptual for me. If that sounds like it's a little bit more, like if that sounds like it's perfect up your alley. Does that make sense? Cool.
That tracks.
Cool. Let's go over to Dustin. Do you have any ideas as what you would want to throw down when you start workshopping on strengths, flaws, fears, and desires?
Well, for strength, I touched a bit on the fact that my character be very goal-driven, where he is willing to accept magical help or ally himself with some kind of organization just long enough to get to his end goal. So his strength is he's very focused on the goal and not likely to waver from that or differ. So kind of like a Terminator. Like that's how I imagine it. Like
maybe would that be properly phrased as utilitarian, right? Like we got to make these decisions, we got to keep moving. Like I don't want to, I think that might be a great way of thinking as a strength. That they're not like, you got to be realistic about these sorts of things.
Yeah, he's utilitarian and grounded. That's definitely a good way to put it.
Cool. I think that would make a great.
So, flaw, maybe he's overly rigid and not as empathetic. Like he's not as willing to make some sacrifices to form those alliances that might require some flexibility from him, if that makes sense.
I worry about that, just because if we build that into a flaw, it makes it hard for you to work with. It makes it harder for you to engage with the story, right? If your character's unyielding and unable to adapt and unable to get like signals from people on those sorts of things, right? Because that makes it as a video game. That's like every single one of us, right? Like main quest, main quest, main quest, main quest, main quest. Like why would I stop pursuing the stopping of this dragon to go and clean out your gutters, ma'am, or whatever? Like one of those things where it's like, having those. We do need to have. It's my job as a DM to give you meaningful side quests or meaningful other alternative items that are going to come into the way. But it's just one of those flaws. That's just be careful with it, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I got.
I'd be my approach would be. I would be actively trying to correct that flaw, but playing it honestly, where my character is utilitarian, but he has to learn and must work on learning to ally himself and trust people. Like he starts out with a party, and then as things progress, he's more willing to take a backseat or a place. I don't want to say secondary, but like you said, like he has to figure out a reason to help people, even if it's not clear from the get-go that it's going towards his end goal.
Okay, Perfect. Yeah, so one thing that I sometimes do with players is I ask them to make the strength, flaw, fear, and desire, and then I ask them to have in mind one of them to remove by the end of the story and to add a new one. So, like, you could remove this flaw and gain the strength of camaraderie or something like that, right? Or you could remove a flaw and replace it with a different flaw because your character, maybe they went from trusting to jaded by the end of it, right? Or something like that. So that would be a good one for you to just put something in parentheses next to it that to denote that you're like, it's going to start off there and then it's going to get chipped away over time, so to speak. Just so that way you don't get too affixed to it, so to speak. It's just because these are just good prompts. That's all they are for us.
Oh, okay. So then for a desire, maybe he is looking to rid the world of tyranny, or something to that effect. And that's a pretty broad goal, but when he's a drifter or he's traveling, he'll look for places like local governor is using magic to oppress or corral his people, or he's something to that effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you could put something like what's that word I'm looking for? Not anarchist, but kind of
Libertarian, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you could do that, or you could put like anarchist and then like in parentheses for good or something like that, right?
These Molotovs are for peace.
Libertarian makes sense.
Yeah, whatever. That's a great desire. Put it down however that is best for you to be able to think of when you see that little box and that prompt. But try to keep it to like 5 words or less.
Yeah, and one thing to note with how these work too is that sometimes they might affect like your dice rolls. Like Josh might choose to like give you a boost in a charm check to try to free someone because you care about like liberty, right? So, or the reverse as well. So like, it's just it's a little more dynamic, I guess. I don't know.
If you put utilitarian as your strength, and I give you a situation, an ultimatum or a choice, and it's like the main bad guy is like, I'll give you the whatever super powerful thing that's going to destroy the world, but first you have to kill that kid. For you can choose like, I don't want to kill this kid, even though it's not the utilitarian thing, but I'm going to make you roll for it, and I'm going to give you setback dice because that's your strength. And generally speaking, what it is it's a black die for your strength and your flaw, or a blue die if it's towards those. And for desire and fear, it's usually 2. Okay, and that's why usually I was looking at Austin here. He says you got courage for strength. That's one usually I don't allow because whenever someone's like, "Hey, I'm in combat. Am I being courageous?" It's like, that's maybe think of something else, right? Or socialite or something like that, where it's like it really ties super close to the mechanics of the game and not necessarily to something else. It's a little bit harder for that, especially when we have overconfidence as a flaw. Then that kind of melds with courageous too. So we might want to just workshop some ideas here. It doesn't necessarily need to be completely removed, but we might look for a synonym that works more in our lane here.
Yeah, and Josh and I had like an hour-long conversation to figure out mine, and he's happy with that now. So
I think we're making great time here. So
no. I was just saying like the only reason that you're not like you and I already had our back and forth on mine.
Right. Yep.
So I'm saying so.
Exactly.
I mean, what about fearless? Because it's kind of what I want out of it. So basically, I want this character to just be like, I don't know, a phrase I was thinking of earlier for direction for this character is I want him to be tanky.
So here's what I would say. Because I know that you have an intention to increase your willpower, that is inherently the metric that does resilience to fear. You don't need that as a strength because your character will have that as a strength, literally, in your stats. So think of something that could be more so a little bit more broad and conceptually applied, or maybe more niche is actually a better way of saying it, right? It could be something like you're dealing with your background, or it could be something like what's a good example off the top of my head? Cartographer, or something like that, right? Like something like, oh, like I have a particular interest in this, or like those idea of a strength, right? I'm blanking on a good example. Let me think here for a moment.
Strength, like adaptable.
Adaptable, okay. Yeah, we could do that. So, what we could go from there is like maybe like, when you're thinking about adaptable, do you think like open-minded or quick
No,
thinker?
more literal, because again, I'm nomadic. I don't settle down anywhere, so I'm pretty used to like finding. Well, that would go more into skills, but like I've walked through frozen areas, I've walked through deserts, I've walked through jungles.
Here's what you can do: put down either well-traveled or nomadic, because nomadic is exactly like, it's a one-word way of saying exactly what you're thinking. I've been here, I've been there, I've been around, and that's a good strength that we could use to pull into social situations, combat situations, and adventure situations. It also means that what I can do is, as far as a negative, because like each one of these has the dark side of the coin, so to speak. You don't necessarily have a well-grounded knowledge in the inner workings of the city of Bronton, because you didn't spend 9 years there. You spent 3 weeks there, right? So that's how I can use the other side of this too. So I think that's a great strength.
Okay.
All right, back to you, Dustin. We got utilitarian as a strength. We've got desire for liberty. We've got fear, crippling or loss of power. Could you explain that to me? I think we might have just talked about it, but I don't remember. I refresh my mind.
No, I filled that in just now. I was trying to figure out a way to express that. Like he'd be afraid of a situation where, say, like if he were to lose a limb, but even if he could heal it somehow through magic, or even one of Sarah's magical devices, that would be something that affects his ability to, um, like he'd get a chip on his shoulder about it, if that makes sense.
What about
Something that he has a deep-seated fear of, where he is crippled in battle, or if he would meet somebody who is, uh, say, missing a limb, that would evoke some fears and insecurities, maybe.
what about like physical dependence?
Yeah, actually, yeah, dependence is more like it, where he doesn't, and that's kind of part of his personality, where he strives to be independent and he strives to help other people be independent, but if he himself is forced to rely on someone else, that is a blow to his sense of self-worth.
So let me ask you a question on this, because your character, your examples are mainly physical, which is completely fine if we want to keep it physical. But what if you were in a situation where your life was on the line and you needed to convince Governor Canterbury that you were innocent of the crime, and someone in the party was like, "Dude, my background is I was a lawyer. Sit back, relax. I got this." Would you think that this fear that the fear your character would have would play a role in this, right? Dependence on this other person for their well-being.
Probably. He would probably find that very, very difficult to do.
So let's just
But
put it as dependence then. Like,
okay.
I like that flaw, resistant to subordinate cooperation. It goes so well with your fear. What's that? What's that cooperation where it's like, no, it's like malicious compliance.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to park over there, do ya? All right, I'll take up 6 spots over there.
Yeah.
There's an entire subreddit for that.
Oh man! Alrighty. So that's pretty much what I think we got this buckled down here. Does anyone see any situation where some of these are going to reach a pretty big head with each other? Personally, I don't see anything.
I don't see any issues.
No, dude.
Okay.
We're all good people. Doing the good work.
And I see some options here for, like reaching out and trying to stop some big baddies, trying to cure the world of stuff. We got some things in here that really kind of play at the strings of really giving me some tools to help trying to drag you guys into some things that would be interesting too. So good to see that there.
Dragging us into issues?
Making story in a game and
Sounds like you're
substance.
the antagonist.
Damn.
Town that is ruled by a doctor with Munchausen by proxy.
Okay, next thing I got here is building character classes. Okay, so we got someone who wants to be a fighter, we've got someone who wants to be a tinker, and someone who can be a healer flex a fighter. Now, as I was saying before, you guys could all be healers, and I wouldn't care. You guys just need to be well aware of your weaknesses and play to them, because I'm not going to change how I build these things. I try not to play towards your weaknesses or your strengths, and I let it organically come into play. Some things will be really easy for you guys based off of what some people have in their kits. Some things will be really hard, and I like that. What I try to avoid is things that'll be impossible. But you guys need to help me with that, because if you guys say, yeah, we're going to just go down that waterfall with no equipment and no abilities whatsoever that help us go down that 700-foot waterfall, it's like, y'all going to die. That's not my fault. So just be aware of it, all right? But that being said, I'm not going to make this like Dark Souls difficulty where you need to min-max all your crap either. It's designed to make sure that your characters can afford to have flaws, because this is a role-playing game. All right. Last we talked, we're going to give you guys... so if you go to the cheat sheet, at the very bottom of the cheat sheet document is some basics on building your characters. And when you guys complete all of that, I'm going to throw 150 XP at you that you can spend as well. Because we talked about wanting to be a little bit stronger than base.
Okay. Base races start with characteristics.
All right. So if you're looking at that at the very bottom, character, you can put 1s in all of your basic characteristics, and then 10 in your wound threshold, and 10 in your strain threshold. I should say wound. And you can see that your health and your strain go up based off of some base stats. There are also talents that help increase some of your basic stats as well. Most specifically your wound threshold and your strain threshold, which we'll get into.
Okay.
So Austin
Yeah.
and actually Austin, you're privy to this. Dustin, what it is essentially that we're going to do first is you'll look at as you're spending XP on your sheet here, you'll see that on the first page you've got your stats, and this is all stuff that you're going to roll. The first thing to know is that the first chunk of XP that you get is the only time you can ever increase your brawn, agility, intellect, cunning, willpower, or presence, unless you get to late game talents that let you increase them at a much more expensive rate. Like we were talking about before, having a starting score of 1 in something means that you are a significant disadvantage of a normal person. 2 is an average person. 3 is exponentially 1 tier higher than that. So I use the example, A 3 in something is a college level athlete. A 4 is an Olympic, gold medalist, and then a 5 is like demigod tier. So you can use that kind of example as for any of these types of stats. A presence of 5 means that you are, a presence of 4 means that you are a rock star, literally, or like you are a politician and president of the United States or something like that. And then 5 would be out of this world, right? You can lead your own cult to destroy it. Anyways, so when we think about spending XP, those are some things to think about. The next thing is, actually, Dustin, I don't think you mentioned what kind of race you're interested in playing.
I was thinking of going with human, doing fighter.
Human?
Keep that aspect simple.
Okay, sounds good. Human fighter. Now, were you thinking, when it comes to fighter, were you thinking Ford tough, or were you thinking like dexterous type character?
I was thinking kind of a dex-based fighter.
Okay.
Maybe focus my talents or feats more on doing kind of cool shit during fights.
Okay. Yeah, Austin has played one of those types of characters before as another rat. So he's got some great advice for how to build out that kind of kit with, like, there's like, for instance, if you see melee light, which is a one-handed weapon, is based off of your brawn. There's talents that can switch it to agility. So don't necessarily get hung up on that type of stuff too much just yet, because the talent book is like 75 pages worth of stuff. So if you help tell me what you're looking for in your kits, we can make it happen, so to speak. But generally speaking, right out the gates, the best thing to use this XP that you get right at the beginning, this what do we got? 240 XP. You're going to use the lion's share of that is to just to build up these base characteristics here. Now you can see in the sheet that to go from a 1 to a 2 is 20 XP. To go from a 2 to a 3 is 30 XP. And to go from a 3 to a 4 is 40 XP. So I'll let you guys go ahead and get started on that. And kind of buff those up as much as you're comfortable with and how you want. And then we can go from there. Most people...
Making sure I did my math right. 1 to 2 being 20 XP. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. Thinking out loud.
Yeah, there's a spot on your third sheet for spent and total XP that you can keep a running tally as well. So I put 240 in the total right now, and then once you guys get done with the spending of this, then we'll go into the next space, which is spending the 150 extra. The last thing is racial abilities. So Dustin, you won't have any of these, being a human, but this could also actually. Let me back up. It's not technically racial abilities. It's any sort of background abilities. What was that, Sarah?
Do humans not get the story point thing?
That's
the old.
Nope, that's all the old stuff. Yep.
Okay.
Because the original book was broken, and humans had 10 extra XP over everyone else. But anyways,
well, nobody wants to pick a boring human, so you get extra XP. No, I'm kidding.
So, racial abilities, and it should say something more like background abilities, is a spot for you to get buffs or nerfs depending on what you want to be. For instance, flying would be something a greater Draken could do. They got motherfucking wings, right? And one of those things is that in order for you to have that in your kit, it should cost you something. And so you can do that right out the gates by building it into your racial abilities. It'll cost you XP, we'll build it up, and then it keeps you, because it has to be something that you build up in the middle, so right at the beginning, it comes out of the tier tree, and long story short, is that should be something that you have to do at the beginning, right, because you were born a dragon, or you were born a human. So other things could be like dark vision, but the reason why I mentioned that we should probably still talk about this as a human, is if you wanted to play someone who's in a wheelchair, you could either use your agility down to a 1 or something like that, or you could base, like if you're a one-armed man, then we put that into we'll give you extra XP and put that into your racial traits, like cannot use 2 hands worth of equipment, right? Ever. So that's kind of one thing. If you had any sort of things that you wanted right out the gates to reflect the character that you wanted to play, let's talk about it today.
Well, I can't think of anything other than I'll probably focus on brawn and agility, maybe.
Okie doke.
Yep.
So you get 1s in each of those right out the gates, and then think about just like leveling them up a little bit. What I would do is think about what you couldn't bear as having a 1 in, and just immediately level those up to 2.
Yeah.
A lot of people go with not having any weakness, right? With not having any 1s. And some people will choose to have 1-1. With some exceptions, I will allow 2 1s, but that you're building your character so asymmetrical. Just be aware that I will not cater to you if you do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So presence is basically charisma?
Correct.
Yep.
Pretty
Okay.
much, yeah.
That is one too where you have to be a little bit careful if you want to be a presence of 1. You should try to play it that way. I'm one person who gets a little bit, I don't want to say I'm nitpicky on it, but if you're like the nicest person and your presence is 1, I'm like, that doesn't reflect right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a presence of 2, so I'm average. I went average on everything, and then I just upgraded brawn and willpower.
Yeah. It'd be the equivalent of if someone said that their intelligence was 1 and they were like, I'm just going to do some trig here quick. Yep. Yeah, pull that lever. You know, I'm like, okay, you might be able to do that in real life, but your character can't do that, so roll.
But there are a lot of different ways you can play a presence of 1.
Yep, exactly.
You know, I made
Yeah.
Mallory be a jerk, but you don't have to do it that way. You can also just be awkward as hell.
Yep. Yep. You can be like the.
Tina has stage fright.
Tina has stage fright.
As a race trait, could I get something about? Well, it's hard to describe like resilience, but the fact that like rats can kind of, you know, we meme about it in the other campaign, but instead of Fleet of Paw in this campaign, have like something about like sewer rat. Like, I can sit down in some squalor and not really think too much about it, and other people are like, dude, it's gross.
Yeah. So what we can do is you can just level up your resilience for 1. Like that's one way that you could reflect that. Or we can give you boosts to specific. I think there's there's a couple of them that give you boosts to poison. Let me look at because we can do is buy a talent out of the book, and just do it out of the tree.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to buy it out of the tree if you don't want to. If you want that extra spot to blooded. Add a boost per rank of blooded to all checks to resist or recover from poisons, venoms, or toxins. Reduce duration of ongoing poisons by 1 round per rank of blooded to a minimum of 1. So you can just buy ranks in that talent, or if you wanted to buy it out, basically what we could do is we could give you, so that would be 10 XP to get 1 boost in that. What we could do is, if you wanted 2 boosts for all of that stuff, we could make you spend 20 XP right here in character creation, and you'd put it into your racial trait instead of having it in your tier tree, which means that you do not receive the benefits of, like, if you wanted to get to a tier 3, you wouldn't have 2 tier 1s plugged. That's that's how that's balanced.
Yeah, but I like having a racial trait. Makes me feel more like a part of being a ratten than like talents, if that makes sense.
No, totally makes sense. So that's one option. Let's see here. I just typed in poison and to see what we can see that's already, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Nature speaker. Chemical parts. A blooded improved. As an action, make a hard resilience check to immediately recover from all poisons and side effects of drugs. Reduce the difficulty once per rank of blooded. So we could really make something out of these talents that are already here. This just gives me a good litmus test for how much XP it should cost you.
Yeah, I have 20 to spend on this that I didn't spend on my brawn, willpower, etc., etc.
Okay. Did you want to do 2 boost dice to all poisons and poisons, toxins, and corrosives?
Sure.
The other way of thinking about it too is I know that you're talking about like weather type stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do double boost to any poisons, toxins, viruses, that sort of stuff. Autoimmune stuff.
Yeah.
Catching colds,
The filthy rats.
Autoimmune, poisons, toxins, or similar related effects.
Correct.
I called it rat gut.
Beautiful.
It's awesome. Imagine that you
Okay,
just
so
feel
how much
bad
did you
for-
say the initial XP was?
240.
Oh, okay. 240, not 150. Okay.
So you get 8 career skills divided into groups as a DMC set. Gain 1 rank in each of the 4 skills. So generally speaking, what I just make sure is that, like, if you're going to be a combat-based person, you have 1 combat. If you're going to have a magic, you have 1 magic. And then you can see that between knowledge, social, and general, you should have roughly a couple of each. Social, I would allow you to get away with 1 if you weren't going to be a social build. At which point, now you've got 5 stats. I would say 2 should be in knowledge and 3 should be in general, that sort of thing.
Okay. 8 career skills. Channeling is what I need for my magic, right?
So that's something that we need to talk about still. How much did you want to go into magic? A lot, right?
Yeah. Real quick, actually, just so I get everything straight. Dustin, are you going 2-handed weapon or like a shield and sword or like just a sword?
I was probably going to go with a one-handed sword, maybe a shield.
Okay, then I'll go 2-handed. Anyway, magic, yeah. I was thinking, I guess, how much can I do with paladin magic? Because I know I can heal, but like, if I said that was my major, is all I can do heal or?
Nope. So we can make, basically, if you pick channeling, and your god is the person that we were talking about, right? It would be anything that falls within their purview, which yes would be healing, but it would also be anything. It would also be charisma based, right? Because they're a goddess of beauty as well. And we're not talking about just healing; it would be also curative effects and restorative effects, right? So, and what I mean restorative effects is return it to how God intended it to be, right? So petrification is not the original. It's a wrongness of something, right? Curing magical effects like curses and dispels would be something that along those lines as well. Keep in mind that if you go the channeling route and you take a look at the there's a magic skills in the magic compendium.
Yeah.
If you go channeling, divine, conduit, profane. Okay, so one thing that if you're gonna try to go like classic paladin and be in like heavy robes and still be a fighter, you're probably gonna want to take the earth trait as well, which essentially is just you see down here required to take the earth mage talent. What that would mean is that having like armor and shit on isn't going to affect you too much because earth and materials and water are like the banes of magic if you're not specifically prepared for them. So that's kind of like when I picture like a paladin. They're practiced in working magic in their armor. It's like trying to like do an electrical current. if you're wearing armor, it's going to change the way the magic flows, so to speak.
I see.
So yeah, just something to think about if you're going to be like a dex-based attacker. Then you might not necessarily worry about that, but I would start impeding you if you start like wearing chainmail and stuff like that. It's going to make your magic like way harder.
Yeah, I was gonna be wearing pretty heavy armor, so I guess I'll need Earth Mage thingy.
Yep, and that needs to be built in out of your original XP.
Oh, the original XP.
The original XP as a starting build cost.
How much does it cost?
Let's take a look quick. Earth. Earth Mage is a tier 3. Must be taken during character creation. The presence of metals and rocks, including obsidian blades and wearing armor, doesn't hinder your magic, nor does mud markings. Items are still protected by earthen boxes unless you are a geomancer.
Oof.
So if something's encased in lead or something like that, it's still going to affect you unless you're like, no man, that's like my jam, right?
Yeah. So yeah, well, does that mean it's going to cost 30 experience?
Tier 3 is 15.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could replace Rat Gut with that.
Your choice.
I mean, yeah. Being
Being able to cast magic and not sacrifice being in heavy armor is alone a very, very nice buff.
Okay, so the effect is can cast magic while wearing armor, and as my racial trait, I'm just gonna, because I'm gonna label that as a racial trait. It's probably, I'm gonna call it any port in a storm.
I mean, so here's the. Ooh, shit! Didn't mean to do that. I'll shrink it for you. This is the as it is in the talents sheet area. But if you want to, I don't want to accidentally go like, hey, you don't have Earth Mage, you can't do that or something like that. Just remind me that you're like, no, any port in a storm is Earth Mage. Like,
yeah, it's just fun. Like, my racial trait as a Rattan, Earth Mage, and it's like, nah, I'd much prefer that I'm adaptable to situations, so it's like, I'm gonna cast my magic no matter what I'm wearing.
Yeah, and you can think of it as, like I was saying before, is instead of a racial trait, it's a background trait, right? You were called upon by your god, and your god's like, yeah, if you say, hey, can you do something for me? They're gonna be like, yeah, let me just take care of that. I don't need to worry about your fucking armor.
Okay. Got it. So now I have 5 XP back. I'm trying to think of the 2 social skills. Coercion feels like it'd be the best for me strategically because it's willpower, but doesn't really feel right for my character. So like charm and.
Well, you wanted to be somewhat charming, right?
Yeah, I have charm. Charm and leadership, I think.
Sure.
All right, and then I need 2 general skills.
Dustin, have you spent your XP, your starting XP? And you can bank a couple if you had some change.
Yeah, I've done my base XP, I think, and I have 40 left over, unless my math is worse than I thought.
Yeah, I see you got everything to 20, so to 2, so that would be 120 XP right there, and then you got a 30 and a 3 and a 4, which would be 60 more for 180, and then the 4 on top of that is 220.
Okay.
So you have 20 left over, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
No problem.
Sounds right.
We can get back to that here in a moment. Next thing that we're going to look at is look at your skills. Those are the items that we're going to be rolling that reference the above characteristics. You need to pick 8 of those that you want. That's basically what we're doing here. I see that witchcraft is. Yeah, I'm just not going to bolt that for you. It's already bolted. And you can. What you're going to do is you're going to pick a couple of them, 8 in total, and those ones are going to be something that's just much cheaper for you. That's it. You can level them up quicker, and those are what we call your career skills. You can denote it by bolding them. You can denote it by putting an asterisk next to them or highlighting them, however you want. And what we'll do is we'll be putting checks in those boxes that are labeled ranks. So the one thing that I suggest is you got to have a balanced kit. Sounds like you're not going to be dealing with magic, so you don't have to worry about that at all. I might end up making you roll sorcery if you're something about like, hey, what do I know about sorcerers? That might be something like that or whatever. But and when it comes to these, you're going to want a combat for sure. So single-handed weapons is melee light. If you wanted to be like a multi-class fighter, like I want to be able to use bows and swords, then you'd pick ranged. If you don't need any magic, what we can do is we can do 2 in each category, right? So 2 combat, 2 knowledge, 2 social, 2 general. But you definitely don't need 2 combat stats, so I would allow you to take that one from there and be a floater in any of those other 3 categories.
Okay, so brawl, would that be unhanded combat?
Brawl is weapons that are close quarters. So it's your cestus, it's your knuckles, and essentially the biggest difference between a melee light weapon and a brawl weapon is that brawl weapons typically do less damage, but when you're in a grapple, they don't take nerfs. And grapple is an action that has a tier list of talents that can help buff them. So pushing and pulling and throwing people to the ground and hitting them, that's going to all be affected by brawl-based weapons, typically speaking.
Okay.
Brawl is also open hand, like fisticuffs, too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So, yeah, so I think that would be a good idea. Do oops. Investigation or interpretation. So I was kind of thinking sort of a streetwise drifter. Yeah.
There is a stat 3 below there that is literally streetwise.
People? I guess that would be people.
Streetwise is it's knowledge about urban settings, pretty much, and being able to, and not necessarily knowledge. It's more like someone, like, you don't need to know it's bad that people have been following you, you know, and
right.
How to lose a tail, knowing how to do it. That would be a cunning based sort of thing, like throwing money down on a table in a seedy tavern. Like how to do it in the right way, that would be streetwise. Getting a hold of the thieves guilds, that would be streetwise.
Probably not super useful in a forest setting.
No.
Okay.
But there could be other things about it that like that too. So streetwise would also be involved with your I would say it's like the survival of social encounters. So survival being like when you're out adventuring and not knowing not to eat that plant. If there's social encounters, your streetwise is going to be like, oh, don't piss off the head honcho, right? Things like that.
How would discipline come into play?
Discipline is your resistance to fear. So if I throw a big bad monster in front of you, I might make you do a fear check, and if you fail it, you're gonna run away. You'd roll discipline for that. Another one would be like staying up at night. Is vigilance based for like hearing something. But if it's been like a long time, and I'm just saying like you just need to fight to stay awake, that would be a discipline check. A discipline would also be like a vampire is casting a spell on you. It's usually resistance to spells, And the vampire's like, "Come to me, I'm going to drink your blood. You feel seduced." Discipline check.
Okay. Yeah.
It's your no
Seems-
button.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. While he is working on that, let's see what we got for folks doing here. Did you pick 4 of those skills that you designated as career skills to immediately put a rank into, Austin?
Yep. Melee
okay.
heavy, channeling, discipline, and resilience.
Very nice. And then now what you can start to do is, and I'm not sure if you picked this already. What was I gonna say? You can start working on your heroic feat.
Yeah. I see. And this is unupgraded, right? Because we can upgrade it later.
Yep. And what we'll do is we can give you guys 2 level ups for it here, because we're starting as stronger characters. And you and I will have to make your spell book as well, because you, as a caster, get to start off with 5 spells. And what I need from you to start off with is give me just type out a list of heal damage, cure condition. You're a basic notion of what you would like those spells to do, and then we can toss it back and forth.
Wasn't there one? There was a heroic ability that existed that I used on Gab back in the day that also probably apply here. That was heal a bunch of health.
Oh yeah, and there was another one that's potentially keep yourself from taking damage at all. Let me go get my book real quick. I forgot my one resource that I was going to bring down, and I will pull that up for you.
'Cause that would help me be tanky.
Miraculous Recovery. Oh, and you guys will get 3 ability points with these as well, so you'll be able to level them up 3 times.
Yay!
No.
Miraculous Recovery. When your character activates this ability at the beginning of their turn, each round when it remains active, your character heals 3 wounds. You can spend 2 points to improve it. 1 point to improve it to when you activate this ability, your character heals all current wounds they are suffering. And then 2 more ability points to get it to Supreme, which is when you activate this ability, your character heals 1 critical injury they are suffering.
Okay. Yeah, that seems good. So the first one will do heal 3 wounds now and start of next turn.
Yep.
And then the upgrade is just heal all wounds.
When you activate this ability, your character heals all wounds they are suffering. So you heal everything right when you trigger it, and then if you're to take damage the next round, you recover 3 wounds from it as it's going.
Okay.
And then Supreme, when you activate this ability, your character heals 1 critical injury they are suffering.
Okay. I won't write that down yet, or I'll think that I have it.
You can. Otherwise, you can spend your extra action ability points on decreasing the cost of story points. There's other things too.
I thought I had 3 points to spend, and I just spent 2 of them on the upgrading at once.
Let me take a look at this quick and make sure that I'm not speaking out of my mouth. I think it's primary effect, improved. The first time you purchase the power upgrade, it costs 1 ability point. The second time it costs 2. So you spend 1 to get it to improve and 2 more to get it to Supreme.
Oh, okay. Then I'll spend all 3, and now I can use this to heal a critical injury.
Yep.
I bet Ryan's cringing somewhere.
Yep, that's about right. Just note that the full heal and the critical injury heal are both once, and then the healing per round is twice, right?
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's an awesome.
What was that?
It's an awesome one.
It is clutch.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
All right, where are we, Dustin? We got your abilities picked out.
He might still be in the bathroom.
Oh, I didn't hear him say that he was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that he's got 8 different abilities and that 4 of them have points in them, so we are good there.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, let's talk about languages. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you gain languages equal to your intelligence. Your options are common, primitive, primordial, celestial, profane, and devil tongue. And you can see that at the bottom of the cheat sheet.
Okay. There's cheat sheet. Elven, Dwarvish, Orcish. I mean, if I'm wandering around a lot.
Yeah, those are examples showing how you build those languages. So that the examples, so the languages are common, primitive, primordial, celestial, profane, and devil's tongue.
Yeah.
There's only 6.
Then the best for me would be 1 and 2.
Yep, that's the common path.
Yep.
For
People
me,
with
wandering
intelligence
around.
of 4 who get to get exotic with their crap.
Yeah.
Languages, common, primitive, primordial, profane. Oh, okay, you're deleting it. Don't touch my sheet.
No, I'm sorry. You didn't have a spot for it. My character sheet did, so I just copied and pasted it onto yours. But
Touch my sheet.
sorry.
It's okay. Okay. Languages. Knowing half gives you broken understanding. You may spend 500 silver on equipment from the store.
And before you do that, you can spend your extra 150 XP.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now I have 390.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I can get...
And at this point, what I would do is I would just put it as 150, because then we can keep track of our leveling as well.
Oh, okay, so 150, and I have spent -5.
Oh, why are you doing it that way? No, have it. Why would you have him do that, Lo?
I don't know. You can do it as the 390 too. Whatever works for you guys.
I don't know. I'm scared.
Because I'm leveling up different than they are right now too. So like.
Oh, you wrote the 240 into yours, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's fine. Have them. You do the 390.
Because I only have 240 right now. Because I'm gonna level.
There's
up
so
on my
much
way.
yelling.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go look at talents. Talents are dope.
Yep.
Do I need to spend any of my talents on magic stuff?
You do not need to spend any of your talents on magical stuff. Just note that when it comes to spending money, you might want to get a focus, like a scepter or something for your god, or a rod or something like that. But that's what the spells are for. You get 5 spells for your person. Now, here's the thing about spells. You get 5 spells in a cantrip class. So I'm assuming you're going to pick healing for your cantrip class. Now, what that exactly means is that within those 5 spells, these can be done during combat, right? They can be quick things, and then if you want to do anything small and minor that's thematic, so a difficulty of average or less, you can make up crap when we're not in combat, but it has to be difficulty average or less, so super small things. If you want to do anything harder than that, you either need to dedicate a spell to it, or you need to get the ritual spells talent, which lets you sit down, craft out a whole ritual, and then you'd be able to spend a short rest or a long rest to do something really cool with your character, which would be a cantrip, an improvised spell that would be bigger than average. So that's just something to think about when you're building out your kit.
Okay.
I think that talent that's in there is like...
And talents are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25.
Yep. And you can get a maximum of 5 of any talent that's ranked, except for tough and grit, because those ones can go up to 10, and that's the strain and the health. I do recommend that you get at least, based off of your leveling up, at least 5 of a combination of those.
Okay. Parry just like never feels worth it to me. Spend 3 strain to use this talent to reduce the damage to hit by 2, but I'm almost always strain capping.
Yeah, it depends on how you're playing. Some people put down a ton of strain recovery abilities. You typically build people with tons of soak, so that's where that isn't valuable for you, or you have a dedicated healer in your group. So
I like being thick.
yeah,
It's very nice.
yeah, I like being thick. Man, I'm tired all the time. No wonder. Parry is not something a thick boy does. Nope, no shit.
Yeah, I just want to last till the world crumbles around me. It's...
Even when you've got the movement speed of a cheetah. What did you ditch? A brain. It was dead weight.
Jin's is
awesome.
great. Also, it's so weird playing a character where I'm like, I have 1 intelligence, but I have a cunning of 3. So like, how does this work?
Yeah,
Stupid faster.
right? And that's a good point for Dustin and some of the viewers as well. The way I roll it is that an animal can be cunning, but is not generally intelligent. So that's like your instincts, right? Whereas intelligence is more your ability to speak and conduct yourself in society and remember things and yada 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 yada. So
Okay, so I have, let's see here, 20 left over after adding the base stats. It's the 150 that you gave us. So I can use that for skills,
you
yes?
can use those for skills and for talents. Talents would include increasing your health pool, increasing your strain pool, changing, like getting extra career skills. It would include cool abilities, like dual wield, so attack with 2 things. It would include parrying. It would include like acrobatic jump out of an attack area, so you don't get attack of opportunities on you. It would include wall running, like tons of different things. Special things for survival and extra loot and trap building. That sort of stuff is all built into the talent tree. Now, if you're gonna just try anything that's not on a sheet, and you don't have a talent for it, I'm probably going to ask for a series of skill rolls, and that's where your rolls come into play. So the way that you spend XP on your skill rolls is the first rank of a career skill costs 5 XP. The second rank costs 10, the third rank costs 15, and so on and so forth. And you need to buy them each as you go. For non-career skills, it's the same amount plus 5 for every level.
Okay. So, okay.
Sorry, I was reading talents when you were going through that, and I was actually going to ask about that. Career is 5, 10, 15, 20, and non-career is 10, 15, 20, 25?
Yes.
Or is it 10, 20, 30, 40?
Nope, it's 10, 15, 20, 25.
The first one. Okay, so I just save 5 on any career thing.
Correct. You save 5 every time you buy one, though, so it adds up.
Yes. Okay, so that's 10.
And then what we can do, too, is if now that you're kind of getting the grasp of it and you've been filling out your guys' kits and whatnot, too, what we can do is we can finish spending some XP, Dustin, after this if you don't want to necessarily, like, break down the whole talent book in your head. I think that the stream has plenty of information on how we're running this, and Austin, you and I can build your spells out of this as well. And we just use very similar rules to the standard Genesis rules for building spells. The only thing is that I make my players lock their spells into place rather than getting access to building them on the fly. The reason why is because I don't like it when people have to sit down for 10 minutes and figure out how to make a spell when it's their turn.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have to make Dustin your heroic feat and go through your languages and stuff like that too. But Austin and Sarah, you guys both have, and Sarah, you've already done this. You have access to the gear, so you can spend your 500 silver as you see fit. Austin, make wise choices.
200 or
No.
500, sorry.
500.
400 barrels of cheese.
Yeah, right. All right.
Not wheels. Barrels.
We just have to fight lactose intolerant monsters.
I mean, it'd probably all be lactose intolerant because it'd be hard to get your hands on cheese, like as a monster in the woods.
I think everybody's lactose intolerant with enough cheese.
Yeah.
If you try to eat an entire barrel, you're gonna shit yourself.
Everybody is intolerant of anything in enough of a dose.
Yeah, like,
By
am
the
I having a sip
barrelful.
of water or am I drowning?
Touche.
So, one thing that I'll make easy for you, Dustin, is languages. You have 6 options for languages, and you can pick an amount equal to your intelligence. The options are speak like how the abyss stuff does, speak how the devils do, speak how the angels do, speak how the land does, like the trees and the animals and stuff like that. Or you can speak like a normal person, or you can speak like a primitive person. And so what we do is when I build like dwarfish or elfish or necromantic script, it's a combination of those 6 in some sort of fashion. So it's like, can I read dwarfish? And it's like, well, that's going to be primordial plus common. So you can, if you have one of those, you can understand it like broken English, and if you have both of them, you understand it perfectly. Typically, with people with 2 intelligence, they pick common. One other thing, our Ratton friend picked primitive because he probably consorts with a lot of primitive folks as he's traveling around the world. Sarah's character Emery picked. She's
I have
intelligence is 4, so she had to pick 2 things not to know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works.
So definitely common. Having into 2s, then. Excuse me. So I have my character starting in Bronton. I think that is the name of the city.
So what we can do is, if your character was like born and raised there, we can start with that. However, I will be starting all of you in the same location for the start of the campaign, so that will be closer to the woods. So I guess are you saying your character was born and raised in Bronton?
Yeah, but I figure he can pick up other languages.
No, yeah, for sure. I just was trying to clarify when you said my character is going to start in
Yeah.
Bronton. I'm like, hold on, that's kind of my choice.
Yeah. He's born and raised in Bronton and found his way to the woods.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're going to be up in the north. The north is, just so you're aware, if you're looking for something a little bit more like canon or canonical, Bronton is a family farm area. There's a lot of undead that came through. There's a lot of profane that live in the perpetual darkness in the northern winterlands. So you might be somewhat familiar with the profane. You also might have some dealings with the Whirlwind in the wild area. So you have definitely some options in those categories for sure.
Would the Woolun speak?
Whirlwind would be more familiar with
Primitive?
primordial, because primordial would be like literally speaking to the animals of the earth and listening to the trees. And what does the fox say?
I like that. I'm gonna go with common and primordial.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, that really gives you that Norse feel, or that that man of the mountains sort of kind of vibe to it too. So that's cool.
Ha! I can get Holy Inquisitor in the talents. +2 success on perception or vigilance checks against abysmal or infernal creatures.
We had money that you're gonna play a Salt Spire based character.
Yeah, it was like, there's no way he's not going to, and then it was Rat Paladin, and I'm like,
I left it up to the people.
He's
The
like,
paladins are
"Rat
still.
Paladin Salt Spire.
I'm a nice Salt Spire, but I am out to kill some. I guess if you want to relate it to Warhammer, I would I'm the most anti-Nurgle person you've ever met.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a life druid, not a salt spire. Witch hunter, so to speak. But yeah, definitely got some overlay there for sure. Let's see here. So you're working on spending your XP, Dustin. One thing that we can do right now is, do you have an idea of how you would like to have one super cool going Super Saiyan ability? You know, we've got lots of things in our toolkits. Sarah picked an ability that lets her instantly prolong her machines if they're like getting smashed to bits.
Make it so they can't die, basically.
Yep, and in Austin's kit, he decided, because he's a Healy dude who wants to be super resistant to plagues and stuff like that, he has an instant heal for himself, and he can recover from critical injuries and stuff like that. So
another popular one's like what? Like Whirlwind is one, or like
so clear out chaff in a flurry of blows. There is do some super nasty attack against the big bad guy. There's also a whole different avenue that you can go with, like having a signature weapon. So we've had players who have like a magical a book that they can use as their channeling device that literally it could get disintegrated and they could pull it out again from their bag and people will be like, what? Or you could have like Thor's hammer where it comes back to you and it's super cool. You know, like there's things like that you can do. But it's just something that you can activate with story points that makes you feel cool. It's like buying a tier 5 talent right out the gates for free, and then even giving it more juice.
It's your ultimate.
Yep.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I kind of like the Thor's hammer idea, where like whatever weapon I have, I can just kind of summon at will.
Yeah.
Or draw back to me, something to that effect.
Okay. Cool. So there's actually one right off the gates that I can give you for that. It is called Signature Weapon. And what we can do is
you can name it.
You can give it we can give it a backstory together. You know, we can really build it into your character. What I need from you is what I'll do is I'll send you some basic stats. What's a one-handed weapon, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of weapon are you thinking?
Medium length sword.
Okay. So we're gonna have a legendary sword of some sort that you can like summon back to your hand, so to speak. And so something to know about this sort of style is that what you get is essentially you get a really nice weapon. That's the base. And then what you can do is in here you can spend a story point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to return it to you miraculously, or you'll find it underneath some stuff, or it'll be indestructible too, right? Indestructible, and it returns to you is the other component to it. So it's kind of nice to have in that regard. But for Improved and Supreme, what we can do is give it extra cool stats, or we can give you something that you can do with it like one time. Like what I would do is, like, for instance, you got this really cool weapon, you can spend a story point to make it magical. And what that would do is things that are resistant to physical damage, since you spent that story point until the end of your next turn, it ignores that resistance, that sort of thing, right? So some thoughts there.
The idea of it being, definitely want to be able to summon it to my hand, or summon it back to me.
Okay.
So if I have a signature weapon, say that's my heroic thing, but the sword I currently have is just okay. So along the way, can I replace that sword, or is it?
So what I would do
that
is
particular weapon?
Just don't even bother spending money on a starting weapon, right? Have this, right? Your character is not, you know, we gave you 150 XP out the gates, so we can build into your backstory how you acquired this weapon. Your 500 silver that's in your pocket, spend it how you want on the Genesis gear page. So backpacks, that sort of thing. If you don't find something that you're you're looking for, you're like, I want a bottle rocket or something like that. Let me know, and we can figure out how much it would cost, and spend that 500 silver on it that way. But yeah, I wouldn't even bother get it. If your heroic feat is a signature weapon, I wouldn't even bother with anything else, so to speak.
Okay.
But you mentioned wanting a shield, so you could buy a shield. You know.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, what I need from you, and maybe you can just give this a little bit of soak time. Go ahead and put in your heroic feat signature weapon sword, and start thinking about, between now and maybe the next week or so, some things that you want to be able to do from it. Like, what makes it special mechanically? It can cut through anything, or it glows when enemies are nearby, or like those sorts of things, right? We already have it that it will return to your hand and that it's indestructible. That's just something that is a given. But we're gonna have a little bit of wiggle room to juice it up. And if you just want to I just want it stronger, dude. I just want it to kill more, or I want to be able to cleave legs off or something like that. We can just decrease the crit rating or increase the damage, so on and so forth. We can give it defensive traits like block bullets or whatever with it. That would be, it's just, I kind of have an idea of how much juice to give it, and I'm going to help spend those points on it for you.
Okay. I'll have to think about that. And I need to spend my XP.
All right. So yeah, last couple of things is your talent list if you're working on your XP. So basically how it works here is, if you're looking at the book, you need to have 2 tier 1s before you can buy a tier 2. You need to have 2 tier 2s before you can buy a tier 3. And that's, so it's kind of like shaped the way that helps make you think of it. You can buy ranked things over and over again, right? So one of the items that's a tier 1 is tough. You get 2 extra hit points, basically, right? You can buy up to 6 ranks in that, and you'll have 12 extra health. Nice and easy. Other things give you extra dice for certain situations, right? Like blooded is like, you get a boost die for curing poisons. Well, if you buy it twice, you get 2 boost dice. There's vigilance based ones. So what I think might be the best way of doing it is take a look, take a crack at how you want to spend your XP. But what we can do is we can start to wrap up some stuff here, and then this is some of these things is that we can start doing on our own time too. So how does everyone feel about that? Blast is doing damage to everything adjacent to the original target.
Huh. That could be cool for later, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so unkillable.
Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm starting to see what's going on here.
Oh, you're looking at Austin's sheets?
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Second Wind, Tenacious.
putting it up for the stream, kind of, as people are building their characters.
Oh, Tenacious. Nice.
Smash, smash.
I'm gonna hit things so hard.
What is your...
Just
your
'cause I
willpower
want
is-
Yeah.
Something else, bud.
Something to consider. You don't even necessarily need to have a channeling device for your magic either. I've kind of built it that way. So all of your magic, like channeling devices, just give you really cool buffs for magic. So if you want to just go heavy into two-handed weapons and stuff like that, that's fine. You might have to consider at some point, if you get like a necklace for channeling, you will have to grip it, which means that you'll have to drop your sword or something like that, or I'll make it an action to use that, or get it to the point where you can use your channeling device if you wanted to have something else nearby in that fashion too. But so you're gonna have fun with that kit, I can tell you that.
I am going to be invincible.
Armor Master. Oh, come on. You are going to build yourself like a meatball cleric.
Yes.
Jeez.
My whole bit is not going down.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, make sure that you spread some of that love around. Mr.
Right.
Eels.
If I, well, yeah, that's the thing is if your medic goes down, Ryan, we have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was really scary because I play a healer in one of our other campaigns with like Eli and Andrew, and I went down, and I had, like I said, she's the character with the presence of 1, and in this game, if there's like the crit tree, like you can get your stats reduced, but if any of your stats are at like 0, and then you get another crit, like you die. So I like got knocked down, and then I was about to just die, and I wasn't sure that anyone else could even pick me up at all. Mm-hmm. And I like that was just gonna be the end. Like if Mallory goes down, she's out.
Yep.
That's it.
You lose your healer.
If you have a talent that says, well, hard-headed specifically, when staggered or disoriented, perform a daunting discipline check to remove that status immediately. It's active out of turn incidental. So I'd assume as soon as you get it. Difficulty reduced per rank of hard-headed. Does that include the first rank?
Yep.
Okay. Reduced per rank. So then it's really just a hard check per se, because I'll have 1 rank on it just by getting it at all.
Correct. Yeah, but it has to be worded that way, just to help with how it functions as a rank talent.
Yep. Got it.
All right, Dustin, the one thing I'm going to help you out here real quick with is your base stats. Your base wounds is 10 plus your brawn, so you're going to write that into that base spot there where it says 3. Same thing with your base strain threshold, so you'll have 12 there, so then you can just update the top one there as well. And then your base soak is going to be your brawn as well, so your base soak is going to be 3. And then your base agility, your base defenses, both melee and ranged, is your any agility you have over 2. So both of those are 2s for you, because your agility is 4.
Nice.
So you guys are gonna be pretty hardy. I mean, to be honest, I think the least hardy person is going to hide behind their hardier stuff that they bring to the table.
Yes, hopefully my little constructs will stand in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand natural right? That if I take natural, when your character purchases this talent, choose 2 skills. Your character may use this talent to spend a story point to reroll 1 skill check that uses either of those skills.
Yeah,
I could pick channeling and spend a story point to retry a spell.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah, and you get to pick 2, right?
Yeah.
So you can pick that, and you could pick probably what I see as either resilience or melee heavy.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that right before I said, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome." And then you're like, "That's 2 broken with spells. Please don't do that."
What's the
Tier.
tier?
2 or 3.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nice one. He's a natural.
Spend a story point, because that also tracks with what I wanted for my lore, and that I didn't go to Halstead to learn how to be a paladin. I just kind of am one, and it's like, why are you good at this?
Because I chose it.
So
Kind of make it up as they go along.
Yeah.
So from here, I'm gonna have some homework for you guys. Some more than others. I'm gonna ask that you finish spending your XP, spend 500 silver in the store, and then give me in a document everything that you know for sure you want in your background story. And then what I will do is I will try to take that and I'll flush it into a 1-page document with stuff that I want to add. And so the kind of the big thing with this is that if you say, hey, I want to have multiple siblings. I think I've just frozen my own screen. Multiple siblings. And, I kind of got sick of having to take care of the family, so I ran away from home, and I joined the circus, and now I'm here. Then I'll build into that. So, okay, you gave me that. You've been in the circus up all the way up till today. Well, I'm going to build into what the hell happened to your family while you were gone, and I'm going to build into what happened when the circus got into town, and how does that make you involved with what's going on in the immediate, right? So if you don't tell me it, that means that I have the luxury of making it up. But if you have something that I need changed, I have to work with you and say, hey, I know you said that you wanted multiple siblings, but I somehow, under God's green earth, couldn't figure out how to make that work in a compatible story with other people's stories.
Sounds stupid.
At least we can have that dialogue instead of me being like, hey, here's your background story, right? Or, that sort of thing. But I wanted to build up that background story with you guys, and I would like to use it in the campaign.
Are you cool with them
Gotcha.
texting it back and forth with you, or do you want it?
Yeah, you
Document.
can text me, but I would prefer to have it all at once, so that way I can work on it and then I'm going to build a 1-page-ish background document to send to each of you, and that is something between you and me, and it's something that it is for the other people to find out organically.
Gotcha.
Okie doke. And then Dustin, send me what you want for your weapon. We pretty much got a lot of it figured out, and then I will update your sheets with a fleshed out version of your weapon, and then you can add flavor, and we can talk about it too. So, and if you got questions or concerns on when you're spending your XP, I'm always available to help you with those and make sure that it's gonna be exactly how you want it come our first session.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's it for our session 0. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll be seeing you for our debut of Responding to the Call of the Hunger. Thank you very much.